Alright, boys, today we're going to be going over some, I don't know, I guess critiques, I would call it, to the new core map.
I
Overall,
got
I
a
think
pen and a
it's
notebook, boys.
gorgeous. I think they're doing an awesome job with the assets that Epic released. Um, so yeah, let's just jump right into it. For the first thing, mid lane looks awesome. I like the way they put in these bump outs instead of the huge jetting towers they had before. I think they shortened the lane up, or they trimmed the lane up a little bit, so it looks good. Like the river. But what I would do,
Okay, prime dunk. Prime.
what I would do, is lower these bump outs, because if you come up here, you see that these are jungle paths to mid lane. Now, the problem I have is the jungler just has a huge innate advantage of being up here. A, if your mid laner doesn't spot him quick enough, uh, and B, they're so high up that I'm sure auto attacks won't reach this high. Or maybe they will, but I mean, like, they have to be poking out like this, and then they can dip back real easy, so, what I think is, like, if junglers or, whatever, any hero has a verticality aspect, ability that gives them that verticality aspect, they should only have to use it once, their gap closer, opener. They should only have to be able to cast that once. So like Seraph, her ascend, should get the person up here. Easy peasy, you know? And there's 4 of those, 2 on each side, so I would go ahead and just shorten those right up, so, they're if the mid laner did have a teleport like a Gideon, he can, answer back, you know, or use it as an escape route, whatever, Um, I would shorten these up. I think these are a little too long. Uh, these bump outs. Say if you're a jungler and you're coming from this fog wall over here, it would take a long time to get to this mid laner if he's sitting over here. A gank would just be a little bit harder. Uh, so yeah, shorten these up just a touch. Also up here, um, I think this is a really, really long route. I think it's, I don't know, I think that possibly there should be another dip out over here, maybe a downward staircase, uh, that could get, from the jungle into a fight, say if there's a fight going on down here. I don't know, I just think there should be a more accessible route. Um, I don't know how they'd implement it, or, come game flow, if it would actually be viable. I just think that it needs to be something. I don't know if that create too many entrances though. But anyhow, uh, now over here to the solo lane. Again, same thing. I think these appears bump out ganks from jungle. I think they're just a touch too high. I like them. I like how they added more gank pass. I don't think that there's too many ganking opportunities. Offlaners are generally safer characters anyway. You know, either you're a ranged caster, and anyway, you should be using your range to your advantage, so you shouldn't be pushing up too far, if you know you're that squishy. But otherwise, bruisers uh, generally have dashes or very tanky in their kits, so um, I think the amount of gank opportunity is awesome. I think it creates a lot of flow to this side of the map, because usually your ganking happens on your carries and supports. That's where more kills are. That's where more XP is. So, having these options, jungle pass, I agree with. I think it works. But again, I think that you should just, if you're gonna make it accessible from a jungler to get in. You should make it so an offlaner, if they have mobility, to get out. You know, to pursue, to whatever. I think it just lower these a little bit. Um, my take on this is probably the same as a lot of other people's. If you are gonna have harvesters, I do not think that core should go the harvester way. I think it just creates a lot of balance issues. You know, a lot of just a lot of little things that could trip up the game later. Um, but I mean, if they are to keep it and they think they can, balance it properly, just bump this out, get this right out of the laneway. So range casters can't be sitting here just poking the lane, collecting harvester. It's a nightmare for balancing end game, yada yada. If it's to stay in the lane. Excuse me. So yeah, just put a little bump out in here, so they can't collect CXP when grabbing harvester. It should be a contested thing anyway, right? You shouldn't be. This shouldn't be free gold if it's in a lane. Is the way I see it. I mean, yes, you do have two harvesters in each of the jungles, but I mean, like, I feel like they're on each side of the river, so they're meant for one team. So if you're gonna have a neutral objective like this, it should be contested. So, but not also innate advantages for one specific class or character if they were to choose this lane. So just bump that out if you are gonna keep it. Yeah, other than that, I think the distance between the towers is fine. Again, your offlaners, this lane should be a smidgen longer. You're tankier. You're also, mobility into kits, yada yada. Um, that's the risk you take with being an offlaner. Play smart. Um, Overall, I like this lane a lot. I like how there's so many ways to traverse it. Um, yeah, gorgeous, man. I love these assets. I love that they chose to go with Dawn versus Dusk. Pearl Essence on these towers is just, it's mind blowing. They're doing such an incredible job with this game. I'm excited to see what they can do in the future, as I'm sure a lot of people are. Um, but man, there was one thing over here in the jungle I saw that I thought they should do. I'm not sure how I feel about that fog wall. I just feel like if you're a jungler like Kalari or Fang Mao, something like that with verticality, you just have such a huge advantage right now. If the game were out, as this map test is, they just have such a huge advantage to gank in lane that Grux or Chimera, stuff like that, otherwise wouldn't. So I don't know what they could do. Maybe get rid of some of these fog windows, I should say, into lanes. Um, yeah, I don't think it's completely balanced, and that's something to look into. I think this needs to be an accessible staircase, not something that you need verticality for. This is between your inhib and your T2. Um, I don't know. I think if you're that far in, pushed up that you got down T2, uh, and you're taking over their jungle, that you should have a route to come in to help your laner from over here. That shouldn't require verticality. Grux would be perfect barrel assing out of here. Smash and grab, pull him right into your team. So, I think this just needs to be, the staircase just needs to be raised up. What else about the jungle? I think the jungle's awesome. I do think that, as another Notch was saying, he thinks it's a little too restricted, a little too confined. I don't know if that's right, but just too many walls, too many walled in areas that makes it hard to spectate, which I can definitely agree with. These little rock piles also agree they need to go. Uh, I mean, yes, they look good, but if I'm gonna get hung up in this in a big 5v5, if that's gonna be the deciding factor, if I can get away from an enemy jungler or survive a team fight, is I get clipped on this, I'm pissed. I'm raging, like as I'm sure everyone else is. So those need to go, in my opinion. Um, Orb Pit, I like. Honestly, I think it looks great. From a Spectre's perspective, I would get rid of those trees up there, or make them higher or something. Just once you're they just clip. But other than that, I think Orb Prime Pit's awesome. I like the verticality entrances up there. I do think those are necessary. I think there should always just be one way into Prime Pit. One entrance that most team fighting aspects is only accessible you know one way. And then if you have mobility, whoop, you can just plop right out. I think that's cool. Um, Orb Prime looks awesome, huge in this iteration. Big menacing looking Orb Prime. I like it. Let's see what else. There's something over here too. I think that I was gonna say maybe they put a ramp up here, but because the reason I say that is because I think it's a very long time for this route. Say you were a jungler and you thought you were gonna go for a gank, it didn't work out, yada yada. Um, I guess you can just drop down that way. I was gonna say it just feels like a long route to take. But I guess that window takes care of it. Yeah, never mind. Oh, one thing I did think, one thing I was thinking of is the jungle is not flip flopped. On other side, from side to side. It is a mirror jungle, so like blue buff on Dust side is blue buff on Dawn side. Um, for a competitive standpoint, I think that needs to be switched. Like it is kind of like in League of Legends. So if your blue buff is here on Dawn side, that should be your red buff on Dawn side. So they call this Dawn side. This is Dusk. I'm sorry, Dusk side, and red needs to be on the other side on Dawn side. Just for vertical jungling aspects, you know what I mean? Like, because if you have two red buffs on each side, that is innately gonna be like what people call the strong side of the jungle. You should not have a stronger side and a weaker side of a jungle. That just promotes camping, you know, camping duo lane. That's not what you want. You don't want your carries to begin overwhelmed and just repeat ganked after repeat ganked. You want there to be other options. So putting blue buff and red buff, opposite of each other just creates more flow in the jungle, and it creates like I said, vertical jungling. Like later on down the line, I know there was just a lot of I'd say uh bruisers in the jungle, but you are gonna want caster junglers that create just a different team aspect in the game, like Evelyn from League or Elise, like those are caster junglers that provided huge stuns, huge charms, yada yada towards the late game. But I mean, they were different than bruiser junglers. They took different paths. So, um, yeah, I just think that the jungle buffs need to be flip flopped between each sides. I guess is the long winded bit of that. Now coming over here as we're going over to duo lane, again, in my opinion, those ramps need to be lowered. I think that if you're in this river here, since it is a longer pathway, like it does take a good bit of time to get to this river buff. I don't think people with the higher ground should automatically have the innate advantage. Like, yes, the innate advantage should be you're on the higher ground, not that someone has to come all the way up here just to auto attack. You know, like so lower these rampways up here so that both parties can auto attack. And again, if someone has a Seraph Ascend, I like using that because that's a good example of one shot verticality. Sarah's Ascend should successfully get her up there. I think, it creates better fights. Seraph Ascends up there. She goes into her demonic form and starts 2v1ing up here. And then you have your jungler wrapping around that just happened to finish his red buff, which is there, and comes and helps assist in the fight. Uh, if Seraph can't easily traverse up here, that never happens, and she gets picked off because she's a melee bruiser. And say there's a Lieutenant Bellic up there, could drop a Void Bomb, and then, just poke her with autos. So I think, again, just lower this, make it easily traversable for people who have verticality. Get rid of these rocks, these need to go. They've even made them to the point where you can't, like, stand on that stuff anymore. So it's just what is that then? If we can't get up there, what is that? Just cut that out. Get that out. Lower those walkways a little bit, and I think shorten this a touch, but just a mite. I don't think it's too long. I think it does need to be shortened just 2 seconds. 2 seconds off this travel time. Bam. There. I think would be good. Now we're moving into, strong side, what people are calling strong side of the jungle because of the red buff. I like it. I think it has a much more open flow to it. I like the side of the jungle a lot. I think they did well. Obviously your red buff. Do got another drop pad. Drop down like you did on the other side of the blue buff. And then here are the harvesters. So again, like I said, they're real close. Like you come out here, and that's the core. So it's one of those things with the harvesters that I think they should go. But I mean, like, it's easily accessible from dust side. This is theirs. So make the third one a contested item, contested objective rather. Sorry. Pretty much standard jungle formation, 3 camps, rotating a buff. And here is red, obviously. Like even down to something stupid like this. I like this little almost arena. I like that. I think it looks cool. Coming over here, this is the Remnant Pit. Fangtooth. They're just calling it Remnant. Much bigger again. Just go around. Big menacing looking raptor. I like it. I like the Remnant Pit. Same thing really, but I like it. And same thing mirrored. This is your dawn side now. Red buff. Camp. And yeah. And did I really lose it? Camp. Sorry guys. Anyway, red side jungle. And like this is what I'm saying about closed confined areas. I believe this needs to go. I don't know what this is, what it serves, what purpose it serves, but it's just a cluster. This is a clusterfuck. Get that out of there. Get these rocks out. Otherwise, I like this. I think this should be like I don't know. I think that should be traversable terrain right there to get up here a little bit quicker if you wanted. Um, but anywho, now over to the duo lane, which I like. I think this is one of the more thought out and worked on lanes. Um, so you got 3 entrances. Oh my god. Anyway, you have 3 entrances, 1, 2, 3 from the jungle. But these 2 side entrances over here are walled off, I guess you'd say, from the other entrance. So you gotta go all the way around. So, say I was on Dawn side, Dawn jungling, yada yada, just finished on my red. If I want to get the, inside gank on them, I have to come all the way over here over this wall to get, the flank on them. But, you've overextended quite far into the enemy jungler's territory. So I like that. I like that a lot. Huge risk reward. It makes you think twice about the offlane gank from the flank, I should say. If you want to invade enemy jungle, just makes you think twice. But I mean, if you want to go for the safer route, here's the middle entrance, right through river. And then this is the Orb Prime dunking pit. After you kill Orb Prime, you assign a carrier, whoever picks up the Orb Prime buff, and they come and dunk it here. Uh, I I don't think they should be doing a dunk. I think it just adds a weird aspect into the game at the 30-minute mark. I don't think you should have one guy barrel assing off into a side lane to go dunk a buff. I think everyone, if you kill the Orb Prime, your team kills the Orb Prime, everyone should get the same buff. It's a team buff, not one person becomes huge and ridiculous. Everyone should just get a bonus to health regen, mana regen, and a little AP, and uh, you know, magic pen or AP, AD, whatever they're calling it. But yeah, that's my standpoint on the orb dunk. I do like this little room over here for the offliners. If you're a support, Bellica coming over here, see the enemy phase or whatever. She's stuck her head in here. You dink her with a stun or whatever. I just think it's cool. It adds a little something extra into the into this laning phase. I like it at least. But yeah, I don't know. Trying to think. I'm not sure what else I'd like to see changed. Yada yada. I know overall I like it a lot. I like uh, this iteration of the map. I'm liking metabuff. Uh, as a company, they're very receptive to criticism, new ideas, yada yada. So I think that this game has a chance. I think that it's in the hands of some good people, some caring, compassionate community members. I think they're putting their hearts and their souls into making sure this project gets off the ground. They just delayed the closed alpha, which I'm not upset about. I think it's 110% their choice if they don't feel like their product is up to community standards, our standards, which is their standards too. That if uh, it's not something they're going to be completely proud of, that they don't want to risk putting it out there. And I completely agree with that. I think give us more time. Let us think around on these maps. Let us nitpick. Let us go back and forth in the community, and let you guys do your hero works. Your hero designs, your animations, your abilities, your auto attack animations. Like make sure it's just fluid. Like do your best at the small things. Which actually might be a huge thing. I'm not a developer, but Just make sure it flows. Make sure the game is nice and creamy. Just flows smooth. But anyway, that was just a little bit of my critiques and things I've noticed that I think should be changed. Hope it was helpful and informative. Thank you for your time. Later, guys.